Good morning and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection. My name is Glenda Rogers and I'm going to be your facilitator for today's session with Dr. Tam Cummings. And before I introduce her, I want to introduce you to Taria, and she is with Vitas Healthcare, and they are our sponsor for today's session. So tell us a little bit about Vitas.
Thank you, Glenda. My name is Taria Midgley, and I'm with Vitas Healthcare. We're a national hospice organization, and we're very proud to partner with WellMed and help provide services to their patients that are experiencing end-of-life care needs, those patients that are experiencing cardiac disease in particular. I wanted to just mention we have earlier this year gone through a certification with the American Heart Association. So while we care for patients with multiple disease processes, we were able to be certified through the American Heart Association for our cardiac program. So these are patients that have heart failure, um, other other advanced cardiac diseases. And what that means for you as a caregiver, as we're able to care for those patients, we are going to help manage all of their cardiac symptoms. Hospice a lot of times there's a negative connotation that we stop all care, right? And with the cardiac program, we don't stop any medications, right? Unless it's something that's not beneficial for the patient any longer. Patients with cardiac disease will continue to receive their cardiac meds, but we come in with a very different approach, and that our goal is to keep the patient very comfortable and do that in their home setting so they don't have to head back to the ER whenever there's an exacerbation of symptoms. The caregivers, the family can call us 24 hours a day, and you're going to have someone that can come out to your home and care for you. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. It's when someone is ready to move from that curative treatment to a more comfortable palliative treatment, we come into the home and can provide those services for patients, and a
Okay.
lot of support for the
Yay.
family through education.
Yay. Yay.
Thank you so much. We're so appreciative of you having Vitas as our sponsor. Thank you so much. And
Thank
the work
you.
the hospice does. So we want to say that too.
Oh, God bless our hospice people.
I
And,
agree.
it continues to be such an issue. People in our country think hospice means death is imminent and don't realize you don't need 5 days of hospice, which is the average American time on hospice. You need that final year. So thank you, Vitas. Thank y'all for what you do. Thank you, Taria, for being part of them. They're
Yeah.
just a wonderful, wonderful group.
And I'll put in their
Hospice.
contact information in the chat box for you so that you can call them as you need to. So
And we're going to put Taria's personal home phone number in there so you can call her and talk to her directly. So we want you to visit with her.
you didn't know what the commitment was, did you,
I
Teresa?
really didn't know.
Taria was like, I just thought I was going to get up there and talk for a little bit. I didn't know it was going to involve all this.
All right,
Thank
let's
you,
get
lady.
going because we don't have 2 hours like we usually do with Dr. Tam today. Let me tell you just one sentence about her. She is the founder of their company in 2009 with the mission to inspire, educate, and empower dementia caregivers. She has her gerontological practice in the Texas Hill Country, which is why we have been associated for many, 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 many years. Right, Tam? Both in Texas.
I met Glenda when I was just a fetus. I was barely here, barely on the world, and I met her first.
And now she's 37.
Yes. And
Hey, all right. Kick us off, Pam. Let's get some conversation going here.
Well, I'm so glad that Taria is here. I'm so glad that we have Vitas because I want to talk to y'all. The last time we spoke about what was going on in my own life, and my mother was actively dying. And what is so upsetting, as a friend said to me, sometimes because of our jobs, Glenda, we just know too much.
Yeah.
And there is a real cycle of life, and 79% of us will die in our cycle of life. And our cycle of life, Glenda, is 30 days before the birthday of the person and 60 days after the birthday of the person. So I technically am in my cycle right now, and I won't finish my cycle until Halloween, and that will be the end of my 60 days. Well, as I was watching my mother over the past year, because the part of actively dying is actually a 9-month process, not a week-long process. It took 9 months for life to start. It takes 9 months for life to end. And people give very distinctive signs that they've entered into this stage if you know what they are, and if you're able to gird your loins to face the reality. So when I saw my mother at her youngest grandson's graduation, I hadn't seen her in a while, but I knew that she was failing based on what my sister-in-law was keeping me updated as I traveled. And so, first of all, what I want you to understand is death doesn't go like this, just down a slippery slope. It's actually an ebb and flow that very slowly go down until nothing. So the person gets a little better, then they decline a little more. Then they sort of get back up and they decline a little more, and then up and down. And so it's just this little wave going down rather than just a straight trajectory. And people are not aware of death. We're no longer a rural society, so people don't see death. They don't sit with people when they die. They don't understand what the dying process is. And a lot of times, because of their own emotion, they ignore what's happening around them and think that there's medicine, there's something that we can do that will make this person continue to live. And the reality is, once the death process starts, the body moves in and it begins to use calories differently, food and hydration differently, and systems begin to start their shutdown. The human body is like a huge factory with 1,000 switches that have to be turned off before the next switch can be turned off, before the next thing happens, where you might now begin to notice that something's wrong. Because of my training, I knew it was wrong back then. So I had told my medical friends that my mother's in her actively dying phase. She is dying. And sure enough, right after her birthday on June 5th, she was hospitalized. And my mother didn't have me be her POA because she was afraid I didn't live in the area and I might not be there. And instead, she put my siblings, 2 of my siblings, in charge. And because they didn't understand the process, they didn't realize that in the hospital, in her time, my mother died twice, and they restarted her because there was not a DNR in place, because they didn't understand that a do not resuscitate means that if I die, you let me die. And instead, they restarted my mother twice. And then my mother, who was a grown woman and who did not have dementia, my mother wanted to go home because she knew she was dying. She wanted to go to her house on her ranch where she has lived for 70 years. And my brother and sister refused to allow her to go home until she could walk and toilet herself on her walker. And as a result, in my view, my mother was tortured for over a month at a hospital by rehab people. And she was surrounded by licensed professional medical people, including physicians. And none of them said, we don't need to do PT. This lady is dying. Let's let her go home. Meanwhile, every single day she begged to go home. Could she please go home? And they wouldn't let her. Not until she could prove that she could toilet herself, because someone in my family didn't want to have to toilet her. And they don't realize it, but what they did was, by restarting my mother, when you do that to somebody in their dying process, you give them another month, another 2 months of misery. And 2 of my nieces understood that this is part of my job. Gerontology is a multi-branch, multidisciplinary field. So I have education in all different areas of aging. I know as much about conception as I do about death. I know as much about little kids and teenagers. I just don't like them. I'd rather deal with older people. We're more fun. And so I understood what was happening. I understood that they weren't able to face what she was going through because they didn't want her to die. So a lot of times, Glenda, what we see is somebody who will not reach out to hospice because they just think if they do, the person's going to die. And by the time they do, the person does die because hospice hasn't been in place for the last 9 months, which it is what it should have been. And then two of my nieces, one called and said, I know this is, you do this. What is happening to our Meemaw? And I said, your Meemaw is dying, sweetie. And she's going to die in the next few weeks. And so many, many tears. And then the next niece calls and says, okay, we went to visit Meemaw, and Meemaw was even mad that the little kids were there. And my grandmother, my mother has had 22 great grandchildren. The youngest one is 18 months old, and she didn't even want to see the grandbabies. And my niece said, I don't understand why she's doing this. And I said, it is part of the death process, especially because she wasn't allowed to die when she died. And so now she's going through the part of the death process where she's agitated instead of being at peace and instead of being peaceful. And I have a huge family. There were 6 rows for my family in the church. That was just my mother's children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. That's how many of us there are. Of her 63 first cousins, there were still about 20 that have that are alive, and they were all there. And so just my immediate family was 6 rows. So we're a great big family. And they couldn't understand why she was agitated. They couldn't understand why she was sleeping more and more. They couldn't understand that she fidgeted, that she picked at her bed covers, and that she was agitated. She was uncomfortable. And when she was awake, she was agitated. And she began to see other people. And normally when we have a person who sees a stranger in their room telling them it's time to go on, we're within 2 weeks to 10 days, because the first person they see tends to be a soul they don't recognize. Now they're talking to somebody that none of us can see. This happens with people all around the world. This is just part of the death process. And the belief is that this is a higher power that's coming to get the soul ready. And the next person that they will begin to talk to will be people that they know, their parents, their spouse, their loved ones. My mother was preceded in death by a grandson and her parents. And so in my training and in my beliefs, I believe that they were gathered there for her in that final day, those final few days, those final moments. And you sort of think about it as, I explained to my niece, I said, try to think that she has one foot of her soul is still here. The other foot of her soul is trying to step across the space. And that process was stopped, and that's increased her agitation. Does that make sense? And when I look back on it, Glenda, what's so upsetting to me is that my mother, to me, basically was tortured, because my siblings were not able to understand that you cannot stop the death process, and you can't make a person who's losing their strength regain their strength because there's a physical therapist there. And so every day they forced a dying, and I know Taria's turned her video off so that we can't see her making faces, but when they didn't allow her body to die and insisted she try to do something she could no longer do, and she's clearly saying, take me home, and they wouldn't let her. And so you don't need to be afraid of hospice. You need to be, as soon as you see a change in status, as soon as your loved one takes a step down and they are no longer getting better, their body is now dying. It's just that as people, you're unless you study thanatology, you're not aware that it took 9 months for life to form and it takes 9 months for life to end. And so my mother, instead of dying in her time of life, went another 6 weeks when she shouldn't have been here. And that was not a comfortable thing for her. Now, in the process of death, Humans go through a bereavement period. Bereavement is what my family has just gone through. That's the days right around the funeral. That's when you first experience the real big touch of grief, where you just can't even believe she's passed. And I had nieces and nephews tell me, I just can't believe this is Mima, and that this is it. And that's a normal response. A normal thing is that people will begin to make the shift into past tense language, but for several weeks and several months, they will use present tense as though the person is still here. And we think that the reason you don't really remember the bereavement time, the funeral, the day before the funeral, the day of the funeral, the day after the funeral, one of the theories, Glenda, is that when this process happens, your brain begins to go into some sort of shift that we don't understand, but the brain has to move all of the stories of my mother from present tense to past tense. And that includes her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, as well as her children. And so that, one of the ways we know if someone is grieving appropriately or if they're stuck in their grieving is that 6 months later, they're still using present tense verbiage when they talk about this person rather than past tense. So the first part is bereavement. And then the mourning period starts. Now, for those of you who are dementia caregivers, you've been mourning for a long time, and you have been experiencing post-death grief. And I realized I was experiencing post-death grief because I realized my mother was dying and nobody else seemed to get it, that she was doing that dip downward thing. And they didn't understand that the combination of congestive heart failure and renal failure mean death is imminent for where she was. And because of love, emotion, fear, religion, they had a real hard time with that. So our first part is the bereavement, where we don't remember what happened. Then the next part becomes the mourning, and the normal time to mourn a parent or a grandparent or a spouse that you loved. Now, Glenda, if you hated their guts, it's not going to be this long. But if it's somebody you loved, it's about 10 years to grieve that person. And for some, it can be even longer based on what your connection was. And so for dementia families, that can be really hard because you may have already grieved your loved one. Over 10 years, you've been grieving as you did their care. And so some dementia families, when their person dies, Glenda, it's as though it happened out of the blue, what some of my nieces and nephews and siblings are experiencing. And for others, the grief is a more settled grief because you've recognized for a long time that the person you loved isn't really there anymore. They're now a shell of who they used to be. They're part of who they used to be. And because of how dementia works, based on the type of dementia, there can be days where you think, oh no, they're actually here again. Another odd thing that happens in death is right before the person dies, they suddenly regain themselves. Even people with dementia who haven't spoken or been coherent will sit up, recognize their children, ask for their favorite meal. The kids run and get the meal, they bring it back, mom eats everything, and then dies that night. And that is very confusing to families, but that's a common thing that happens when humans are dying, and we don't understand it. We just know that it's part of the process. It is very important that you cry when you need to cry, because when we grieve, our brain produces toxins that are only removed by grief tears. And grief tears are different than I stub my toe tears. And because of American culture, because of Texas culture, we're taught not to grieve, especially men. And so I know, as much as my mother loved my brother, he's not getting nearly the support from others that my sisters are getting because we're female. And that is a common thing that's done, even if it not only was his mother, but if it was his mother-in-law or his father-in-law. They've been in his life for 50 years. And men grieve too, It's just that for some reason, Glenda, we don't seem to think they're supposed to. A lot of us will actually report the first time I ever saw my grandfather cry was at the funeral for my nephew. And the first time I saw my father cry was the funeral for my nephew and then the funeral for my grandfather. And that was not his father, that was his father-in-law. So as you go through death with your loved one, everybody grieves differently. I have 2 nieces that are really, really struggling. I have other nieces that are a little bit better, that seem to be more calm about this and recognize that their grandmother was no longer happy. She no longer felt right. She was ready to go to the next place. And so that can be especially hard because families don't have the tools to realize what this person is doing. We use the actively dying tool, which begins to tell you 9 months out what this person will begin to do. And as my mother began to enter into her final couple of hours of life, my mother was an abused woman for 30 years by my father, physically and verbally abused. And I was in Sarasota trying to get back home. And my siblings had my father come over to tell my mother goodbye because they thought maybe that's what she was waiting for. And I thought, oh my God, at her most vulnerable time ever, laying flat on her back, dying, you brought over her abuser. And then they called me and they had me talk to her over the phone, even though she wasn't coherent at that point. They're sort of semi-conscious, but we still believe that they hear us. And I wished her peace and a peaceful journey. And I knew that my brother was going to be there soon. And I said, just give Jimmy 15 more minutes. He'll be there and then you can go. And that is what she did. Now, one of the odd things, Glenda, was one of the other odd things was at the funeral, when everybody had left and we're the last ones in there before they closed the casket, I kissed my mother's forehead and I stroked her hair. The last time I can do that. Well, once I did that, my siblings and my nieces and nephews began to touch her to tell her goodbye instead of just not knowing what to do. And the weirdest thing was my baby sister came over and said, Tam, she's cold. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute, Glenda. That's part of bereavement, not realizing that a dead body no longer has warmth in it, and it is taking on the temperature of the building that it's in. And that she just seemed dumbfounded by that. And it's not that she's a stupid person. What I was seeing was part of grief, and that she couldn't comprehend that her mother was laying there, but the body was cold because she had never touched her mother where her body was cold. And so people have different responses. Everybody grieves differently. One of my nephews was being very sarcastic with jokes to his aunts and his uncles. We didn't appreciate it. We'll take care of him later when he's not suspicious and suspecting it. But people say and do things that they may not even realize they're doing. And they may not even realize that they're doing something I would not agree with and I don't think is the best thing to do. But I had no control over that situation or how she had chosen to have her final bit of care done. But recognize that even the nephew being sarcastic, that's his way of grieving. That's his way of dealing with trauma. And for a lot of people, death is for the family members, death is a relief. They're now released from what was happening to them with dementia. For other people, it's as though it suddenly happened out of the blue and they didn't get it and they didn't realize it and they don't understand it and they're actually mad about it. And I've had people, Glenda knows this, I've had people that never visited their grandmother come in and tell me to go in that room and tell that woman to stop dying. And, you know, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Once the death process has started, what my siblings did by having her restarted made a glitch in her death process, but it didn't actually stop it. It's going to continue to happen. It just meant that in my mind, she was tortured by physical therapy and by doctors who didn't say, this woman is dying, take her home and let her die. And you should know hospice was there with her. They weren't with her when she died because my family didn't know to call them now. Now you need that nurse out there. Now you need those folks out there. And so my mother had a favorite person who was singing hymns to her, and she had some of her favorite grandchildren and people in the room. And that's unusual. We normally see a soul won't make a break until we leave the room. We all leave to go to the bathroom. We've been there for days. We're exhausted. We leave to go take a shower. We run home to do something. We come back and they're gone. And the belief for that, Glenda, is that that soul is so connected to the people around that they just don't understand the process. And what's amazing to me is my family are all rural family. They've all seen death. We see death all the time. Calves die, chickens die, animals die all the time. It's part of being in the ranching business. But they couldn't grasp and understand what was happening to Mother. And so some of you may have that very same thing happen. So use your actively dying tool. Because even if you can't get your siblings to look at it and understand what's happening, you understand what's happening. And on your actively dying tool, it's either in your itty bitty book or it's on my website on the tools section on the front page. And it allows you to know this is the order in which the human body ceases its function. And so you'll understand that there is some agitation. You'll understand that the hands and the feet are beginning to turn blue because circulation is slowing. You'll understand that we don't, Glenda, we used to put feeding tubes in people with dementia. They just pull them right out. Families get frantic because the person's not taking in hydration and they want an IV used. What happens when you use an IV on a person who's dying, Glenda, is that they actually end up drowning in their own fluids. If you follow the process and humans can go about 7 days without water, we can go about 3 to 4 weeks without food. But in the dying process, the body stops taking in fluid because it's part of the process. And as the body takes in less fluid, calcium levels begin to build in the blood. And the calcium is what it ends up at the end putting the person into their peaceful sleep and death. But if we hydrate them, if we put an IV in them, we end up causing them to drown on their own fluids because you have to understand they're not wanting food. They're not wanting hydration. The body is not thriving. The body is shutting itself down. And even if you put food into them, we realized this when they did measurements, even if they put food into them through a peg in the stomach, the body doesn't use the nutrition. The body is dying. It's doing its natural process, but we panic. We panic because of love. We panic because of fear. We panic. And we have been taught all our lives we have to eat and drink or we can't live. And we're afraid they're in pain, and there shouldn't be pain because our hospice people are there and they are the experts. My mother's heart medication wasn't removed until she could no longer swallow and couldn't do it safely. Hospice was there to help. And that's what I want all of you to have. When I look at a family, at a person, one of the things that they will frequently say is, I am so scared. I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really know how this process is going to go. And they can be so scared that they do things that are detrimental to the person without meaning to. And in my family, they thought if they just get her up and walking, she would come back to it. And because of their emotion, they couldn't see that there is no coming back from it. This process has started and we cannot stop it. And we can interfere with it, Glenda, and jumpstart her heart a couple of times and run a PICC line up through her arm and make her arm black. But that's not helping her. That's helping us. And we have to be able to say goodbye for that final time and focus on keeping that loved one comfortable, not keeping that loved one in pain. Does that make sense, Glenda?
It makes perfect sense to me. I wish it made sense to more people.
I wish it did too. I wish it did too.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any questions? We have
do.
30 minutes for questions. Let's
I
get going.
know. Man, I'm used to an
Yeah.
hour. We're going to have to hurry here.
I know. I'm
Um,
gonna talk really fast.
Okay. Cheryl says, how do I handle neurologists who do not communicate? She's in a small town with only one group. She's had to do all of her research to figure out which dementia her husband has. Do you find that physical therapy helps dementia patients? I'm thinking PT helps dementia patients with processing.
No,
No. What did you mean
no,
PT, Cheryl?
no,
Yeah, PT. Yeah,
Oh, all
PT.
right, good.
no.
No,
We want our physical therapist, occupational therapist, and speech therapist do not know they're dying. They don't understand their brain is dying. I had a speech therapist come up to me in Sarasota, and basically what she was doing was illegal. She was providing speech therapy for a woman with primary progressive aphasia, frontal temporal dementia, who was now mute, can't speak. She's charging
Mm,
Medicare and her insurance to go do speech therapy with her, even though this woman will never speak again because the pieces of her brain that do that are gone. And so our medical professionals don't know it. If your mother has a diagnosis, there's nothing else the neurologist does. There's no magic pill. The neurologist does the diagnosing, and you're looking for a neurologist who specializes in dementia. And you're not going to have that in a small town. So you
Right.
use your 9 dementias and take away every one you know she can't have. And then the goal is to keep them comfortable. We can treat socialization. That's what memory care and adult daycare does. They give them socialization. We can treat them for pain, anxiety, depression, and psychosis. That's all we can do. That's
okay.
all
Well, that's
that
what
we
I've done. We've had him treated for the aggression, and now he's getting
Well,
just
the
weak,
aggression
and he
is
thinks he needs more exercise because it's gonna help him get
okay.
stronger. And
So
other
you're
people say, well,
wrong.
you need to exercise. You need to exercise. So
Okay, stop. You're wrong right there. He doesn't understand exercise doesn't help. That he's not thinking. He's not
yeah,
thinking. He's not in denial. He's not pretending. He's not lying. He's not showing off. He's not faking it. You're watching brain damage. And if you'll
yes,
think about what he's saying, it's very logical. I can't find my purse. My brain doesn't know it's sick. It says my purse is right there. Now my purse is gone. You must have stolen it. My brain doesn't know it's sick. I don't feel like I'm falling. I'm not moving correctly. I must need physical therapy. So you realize it's a very strange logic that's happening in a damaged brain. Physical therapy should be doing range of motion so that we keep the person as flexible as possible for as long as possible. But are they going to get up and learn how to walk again? No, because the piece of the brain, actually the pieces of the brain that do that don't exist anymore. But your therapists don't know that. They're not aware that they can't teach that person to walk again because the brain, that the piece of the brain that did that doesn't exist.
so
yeah.
just don't motivate him to
No.
like he's got a treadmill.
And oh my God,
No.
no. We should. Do you know what a
Because his
treadmill
balance
does
is
to you, Paul?
off, but he tries to overdo it, and I tried
Get
not
rid of the
to, but then
treadmill. You need to get rid of the treadmill. If it's
okay.
not there, then I'm not reminded to get on it. And if you have not seen what a treadmill does to a person with dementia when they fall on it, it is absolutely gruesome and things usually broken. And remember, for all of y'all, it's one good fall and they're out of here. It is truly one good fall, one good head strike, and they're gone. They're going to be gone soon. Okay. So physical therapy just doesn't, nobody's taught them. You can't fix this. All we can do is provide socialization, take care of their pain. And Cheryl, you said he's very aggressive.
He
50,
was.
50% of the behaviors are untreated chronic pain. So before you ever get a Seroquel, before you get any of the other drugs, you first do your pain ad. You assess for pain using the pain assessment in advanced dementia tool, and it's in the back of your itty bitty book or it's on the website. Because
Okay.
I know going into a community, I know talking to a family, when they tell me their person is now aggressive, first thing we do is treat pain, because you and I are taught to push pain down. Right now, I fell and twisted my knee. My left knee is absolutely not working. I have my left sciatic has hurt for 2 years. And every now and then I stop doing stuff long enough to feel that pain and it hurts, but I'm able to push it down and do my job. Well, imagine having brain damage and I can no longer push that pain down. Pain makes people aggressive and agitated, or it makes them very still and they don't move because it hurts. So use your pain ad and check his pain before anybody gives him an antipsychotic. The first thing we are supposed to do is determine, does this person have dementia? Does this person have depression? Does this person have dementia? Does this person have depression? Do they have any one of another 100 common things that we can fix but would make them feel cognitively impaired? If they actually have dementia, now I can do socialization. I can assess and treat their pain for the rest of their life. People are actually not afraid of dying. They're afraid of dying and being in pain. And that's what our hospice people take care of for us, is they make sure the person is not in pain. And then anxiety makes people very agitated. Untreated depression makes people agitated. And everybody with dementia has anxiety and depression. It just doesn't mean they're being treated for it. And the tools on the website are the Hamilton Anxiety Tool or the Cornell Scale for Depression and Dementia. And all of the tools are observational tools, Cheryl, because you can't ask a person with brain damage to give you the correct answer. They have brain
No,
damage. They have
yeah.
brain damage. They're not being deceitful.
Yeah, because he'll
and
say,
y'all-
I'm not hurting. I'm fine.
Because all of your life, we've been taught to ignore pain and to say we're not in pain because no one cared and no one could do anything for your pain. So it's a human construct. But once the brain has enough damage, the person's pain begins to show itself, and it shows itself through aggression, through anxiety, through depression. And if your person's on an antidepressant and they fail the Cornell scale, they're on the wrong antidepressant or it's not high enough. If they fail the Hamilton anxiety scale, their anti-anxiety medicine's not working. If my medicine works, I don't have anxiety and I don't have depression. Right, Glenda?
Right.
Did that help, Cheryl?
It does. So I'll just go on your website and just go through. I've gotten
Yeah,
some
you gotta
things
go
off
all
your
the way-
websites. Very
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you so much.
Go
Very,
all the way
very
down
helpful.
and print those tools out, Cheryl. Those are medical tools that we use in gerontology. The doctor will recognize them, but it'll give your doctor a better chance to correctly treat your husband rather than doing the thing they automatically do, which is let's give them antipsychotics. And they haven't followed the procedures. I first must rule out pain. I must rule out depression. I must rule out anxiety. Only then do I go to psychosis. And the psychosis test is the brief psychiatric rating scale. And that's in the tool section too. That's what tells you that the person needs an antipsychotic. And what Glenda and I usually find is most people read the antipsychotic or the brief psychiatric rating scale and realize most of the people we know should probably be on an antipsychotic. That's what Glenda and I have figured out. We're going to start sprinkling Depakote in people's food or around them.
Including ourselves, right? Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, just a little touch for myself.
Just a little. Yeah. Yeah. Just. Yeah.
I was in Sarasota as my mother was dying, and I was staying with a friend who's one of the leading medication people on neuropsych for dementia. And at one point she looked at me and she said, Tam, do you want some Seroquel? And I said, no, I really, I think I'll grieve. I think I'll be okay. But if I'm not okay, a year from now, we can talk. But yeah, I don't think I need an antipsychotic. She said, it'll stop your brain from spinning. And I said, I'll never make it home. And as it was the worst travel day I've ever had. I flew 140 times last year. I never had travel like I had on that day. All I needed was that one flight to go home. I ended up on 4 different flights. I got to my mother's wake 5 minutes before the end of it. So, you know, educate yourself and use those tools. The doctor may not have seen that tool before because they're specific to germ.
No, he hasn't. No.
But they'll recognize what the tool is saying. Okay.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Cheryl,
Thank
so
you.
much.
And Cheryl, go ahead and check yourself for depression while you're at it. All
Yeah.
of you. Do the
Yeah.
geriatric depression scale. It's how you felt in the last week. We don't need a story, just a yes or no. And then check it to see if you scored 5 or more. And 5 or more is a positive thing for depression. And realize that as family caregivers, your doctor probably doesn't realize it, but you probably have PTSD. It's now been determined that that is a very real thing for caregivers. Okay, so make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Well, this
too.
is my 5th round, so I probably do have PTSD of caregiving. But anyway,
You
yeah.
probably do, but that means that your anxiety needs to be treated and your depression needs to be
Yeah.
treated. And when every one of you that I can see on the screen shakes your head no when I say depression should be treated, 10 years of untreated depression equals Alzheimer's. We don't understand the chemical interaction, but we know that if your serotonin level is out of balance because of depression, and that's what causes depression is your serotonin level, if you don't get it corrected, you end up with Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay,
Oh, no. Okay.
no. Okay, we got to move on. Okay, Robin. Mom has undiagnosed dementia that started a year ago that we can tell and seems to be quickly failing from hypertension, massive lower leg edema, but no hospital visits yet. She lives in assisted living and cannot ambulate. How can we best help and support mom? My sister has one weekly hospice coming in, but we can't tell what they do.
They come in and bathe your mom is what they're doing. And a nurse is probably coming in and checking her. Do your 9 most common dementias, take away the ones that she can't have. And I can tell you right now, she has a vascular dementia and she has an onset of Alzheimer's. Because if you have what you're describing, those are the things that are going to be part of that. Okay. So she has a vascular dementia and she would now have Alzheimer's as well. And that is called a mixed dementia. She would also have kidney issues as well as heart issues. And so what happens, Robin, is the heart can't get the blood out correctly to the rest of the body. And the kidneys read this and go, oh no, we've got a major cut in an artery. We better put more salt in the blood to make the blood thicker and clot. And then that blood that's heavier with sodium goes back up into that heart, and the heart is now having to pump harder and harder because this blood is thicker and harder to pump. And then the kidneys go, oh no, it's not working, add more sodium, and it just becomes a vicious cycle that happens. And that's what you're seeing with the edema. Okay. And that tells you there's a renal issue, a kidney issue as well. And so if she's, let me see, she's no hospital visit yet. She lives in assisted living and cannot ambulate. She probably would get better care in memory care, especially since she can't ambulate, because they're not going to give her the socialization and they're less likely to put her back to bed when she's tired because they don't want to do the extra work. And there's more caregivers in your memory care building than there is in assisted living.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
My sister is a MPOA and I can't get her to commit mom to memory care.
The building should have done that. The building should have had a meeting with your sister and said, your mother needs to be moved. But Robin, you're in the same position I am.
Yeah.
And when we're in that position, all we can do is pray for peace for our loved one.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Right. We don't have that authority.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is my sister is a hospice nurse and she won't talk to the rest of the family. And she won't even put us on mom's contact list. I can only go there on the weekends to see mom.
She's not allowed to do that. Am I right, Glenda?
I don't know. That made my head spin.
You're not allowed to tell adult children. I mean, unless the law's looking for you, Robin. And if they are, we'll hide you down here in Texas. But
I'm in Texas.
She's not allowed to say y'all can't visit because children.
She said we can only visit on the weekends.
She ain't the boss of you.
I know.
Okay.
When mom showed, yeah.
Okay. And you're allowed to visit your mother as much as you want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
I would
been
also suspect
trying.
she wants you to visit on the weekends because the weekends is when we have usually not the same crew. It's more of a hodgepodge crew in communities. So we don't have the same kind of care. So she's using y'all to maybe shore up care there. But she can't tell you you can't visit your mother. She can't tell you what day to visit your mother. And if you want to understand death, go to Barbara Carnes, Karnes. Go to Barbara Carnes, just Google her. And she writes the books on what's happening at the end of life. And if you've ever seen the Little Bitty Blue Book hospice people use, that's her book. And she's got some other books that they're very easy to read. The little bitty ones are wonderful support for you and your other siblings because it tells you what's going on. And I'll be honest with you. Most hospice nurses do not understand the death process. They're just a hospice nurse. And it doesn't mean they understand the brain is dying. And it doesn't mean that they understand the death process. That is a thanatology study, not a nursing study. Okay. So if you want to know as much or more than she does, let's get Barbara Carnes stuff in.
Yeah, no, thank you. The 30 seconds that you took to explain about the kidneys, I had no idea. And I don't understand why she couldn't take 30 seconds just to explain that to us.
Well, my guess would be she doesn't know that and doesn't understand how that functions.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So do you know what an enlarged heart is? Okay, so
Yes,
your fist is the size of your heart. Okay. Your
Yep.
stomach's the size of both your fists. Next time you're at a buffet and you're thinking
Yeah.
I need everything, this is how much your stomach actually holds. An
Yeah.
enlarged heart is your fist with your other fist like this.
Yeah.
And it's pumping, but it can't pump right. And so it has to pump 2 or 3 times to try to get that one thing of blood to leave and start into circulation. The heart overworks itself, the kidneys read, and it just becomes a cycle.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's why you're seeing the edema in her lower legs.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's chronic AFib too. I was taking her up until
Okay,
this.
yeah. So
I was
that's
taking her to the doctor up until this past year, and then that's when my sister moved my mom and she stopped talking to the rest of the family. She started isolating
got
her
a lot
from
of power.
us.
Yeah, she's got a lot of power there, but she cannot isolate your mother from y'all. You have every right to see her. And
Yeah,
if
thank
you
you.
don't think you do, call the Area Agency on Aging. Just Google Area Agency on Aging. And Glenda, you're going to have to type that in because everybody gets it.
I will. I will.
Agency
And
on Aging. Ask for the ombudsman.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you.
Your ombudsman. Nobody puts the fear of God into people like an ombudsman.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
put that in
you.
next. Thanks so much, Robin.
Thank you. No, thank you.
All right, moving on. Anna, good morning, everyone. Question for Dr. Tam. I've made the decision to have mom winter at assisted living from mid-December through March, and it is very likely that placement will be permanent. Can you suggest how I communicate this to my mother?
You don't need to communicate this to her.
Okay.
Did you ask a 5-year-old for permission to get them up early and send them to school for 12 years, or did you do the right thing? Your mother
Mom's at
cannot-
hospice house right now so that I
Yeah.
can have a 9-day break. She was on hospice after she had the brain bleeds after Memorial Day. And Dr. Tam, I treasure the voicemail that you left me that day when I called you to ask you if this would speed up her dementia progress, and it has. In the times that I've had her at assisted living before, I've just said she's going on vacation, and she
Just
deals
tell her
with it.
that, and she's on
Okay.
hospice. And
Yes.
I think the figures are like 90% of the people that use respite care, it ends up being care to the end of life because you finally are able to get your feet back underneath you. And she gets better care there because they're licensed and trained and they're not exhausted.
Well, frankly, we live in a rural area. We are 20 minutes from town. Winter especially, we are completely isolated out here. And last winter was really, really tough for her. I moved up here over 2 years ago to take care of her because she couldn't be by herself any longer. And I have been her primary caregiver since that point in time. To all the caregivers, yes, talk to your doctor about your depression. Mine just got raised for the first time since my husband died 9 years ago, and I'm feeling much better. So yeah, go
It
get your
kicks
Zoloft.
Yeah, when the right antidepressant at the right dosage kicks in, it'll be about 10 o'clock in the morning, and you'll have a sudden thought of, I feel different. I haven't felt this way since. And you'll
Yeah.
go to when it started. Your brain will
For-
actually tell you when it started.
Yeah, for
So
me, it was sleeping through the night without, the anxiety and the worry of everything waking me up 2, 3 times a night. So I
remember,
was sleeping well after
anxiety.
3 days.
Okay, and be checked for anxiety as well.
Yeah.
Do the Hamilton Anxiety Scale for yourself. How could you not have it? Understand your normal doctor doesn't realize you've probably developed PTSD, so they don't even know to look for it. And then do the geriatric depression test. And if they've got you on the right one and the right dosage, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mom has definitely declined since the bleed in May. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised that she's rallied as much as she has, but her word finding is almost impossible sometimes. She cannot communicate a clear thought.
When's her birthday?
October. I'm
October.
kind of
So
thinking that
maybe in the, well, the thing
I
that
think we're at the
can throw it
beginning of
off
the active dying phase.
that it's either that or your mother had a medical intervention somewhere that changed when her death would have occurred. So people have a heart surgery that changes when their death would have occurred.
She
Otherwise,
just had a heart valve replaced after the first one lasted 17 years, and that was replaced 3 years ago.
those, so her death may have been, her death cycle may have been
Right.
all, but you've got hospice there, right?
Mhm.
And
Hospice is there for now. We just went through
they don't leave.
certification. Well, the hospice nurse told me that this was 90-day checkup, and then we'll have another one in 90 days, and then it'll be every 60 days. Will she still
Yeah, they're
qualify?
going to do their best to keep her on hospice. That's how
And I know they will. I know they will. But the only thing that she is showing right now is the cognitive ability decline. That is the only thing that's
No,
really
that's-
observing.
no,
Her
that-
blood
you-
pressure is doing okay.
No.
you don't see the physical change until a pound of brain tissue is lost.
Okay.
And so a common mistake people make is they treated your mother like nothing was wrong with her because she didn't look sick. And if she was really sick, she'd look sick. And it's where siblings get out of sorts with each other is
Yeah.
because one of them's living with mom and sees what's really happening. And the other ones have the social conversation with her and thinks she's fine. So cut yourself some grace.
Okay.
Cut yourself some slack, go to self-compassion.org and take the test because now you're on the antidepressant. You're feeling better. Let's see if you're being good to yourself. All of you, self-compassion.org. Take your phone, turn it sideways, scroll down, take the test. Takes about 10 minutes. You can score a 5. Anna, I really thought I'd score a 7 because, I'm that good. I took the self-compassion test. I scored 1.32. Okay, so we have to take care of ourselves, especially you caregivers. Your doctors aren't aware of the stress you're under. One woman had had 3 heart attacks trying to take care of a man with Lewy bodies. And her cardiologist actually said to her, "Oh, I think you could probably do caregiving 6 more months." And she was like, I think he wants me to die. And I was like, well, your body is certainly trying to die. So take care of yourselves. Do the depression scale. Do the Hamilton anxiety. Go get medication to get yourselves back in balance. Okay, you love these people and it hurts and it takes a toll. It's not like they were just taken from you in a car crash. This has been years you've been watching this happen. Okay, I'm a little worried that your shirt says stab and that
It's the name of my business. Stab things into
stab things
existence.
into okay, all right, I get it.
It's great therapy. Let me tell you. Anyone wants to know more, send me an email.
I don't know. I'm a little scared, Glenda. I don't know about
No, I kept seeing it too going. I
I think
wonder
we
what's
got time
underneath
for one
that.
more, right, Glenda?
Right. Okay. So we have the poll up right now. If you take the time, please, as we go forward. Let's see. I think we're going to go to Jane, and she says that her husband has FTD, primary progressive aphasia, logopenic variant. I have
Oh,
printed
okay.
your
I
statement.
know what she's saying. The X's,
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
the X's are in the column to tell you that the behavior in the far left column is most commonly associated with PPA logopenic variant. In stage 6 and 7, there are no more X's because at that point, all dementias are considered the same due to the amount of brain damage. Okay. Now, the other way to use that tool, Jane, is go down the left column, just check off every behavior that you've seen your person do, because the FTDs especially can intermingle. And some of the FTDs only show up if another FTD is already in place. And then the FTDs also get Alzheimer's. But just so that your doctor can see everything you're dealing with, and so that you know you're not losing your mind, you're not crazy, go down the left column and check off everything you see, because there may be things there that are also happening to your loved one that you didn't realize are part of brain disease as well, because you can get some behavioral variant behaviors because it's destroying the frontal lobes and the temporal lobes, hence the name frontal temporal dementia. Okay, but that's why the X's stop.
Okay.
So the left column of the behavioral,
The left column lists all the behaviors.
Okay.
Okay. And the X's are telling you which of those 9 dementias is most commonly associated with that X or with that particular behavior. So I've X'd them for you for logopenic variant, but go ahead and go through all the behaviors on the far left column and X those too, if you see them.
okay. Okay, I have one quick question. Is it okay to call you on another day with a question I have about treating UTIs?
UTIs are part of the disease of dementia.
Right, but
And
my question has to do with more about not treating it.
well, you have to treat it or the infection will kill them.
Right, that's what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Give me a call.
Thank
I've
you.
got your number up on the chat box.
Okay.
Tam has to zip off to Wichita. I have something that I'd like to talk to y'all about for a couple of minutes after she zips away from us. Thank you, Tam. Final words.
And I hear what you're talking
You
about.
can hear it, but I thought you were running, girl.
I am running.
Okay. Has anybody heard about guiding and improved dementia experience, the GUIDE program? That is a new service.
Yes.
Okay, look, Anna has. It was not here in Texas, but I ran across some individuals that had been providing that. If you do not know about that program, it is a service program for those individuals, caregivers, with caring for people with dementia. And they provide 24/7 access to support service, care coordination, transitional care management, caregiver education, care planning, assessments, home visits, medication management, monitoring, different referrals to social service agencies, and respite service. And so I encourage you to look up this program. I think Minerva has a link that I had sent to her to be eligible, a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other dementia, enrolled in original Medicare. Now, you have to have original Medicare, not HMO. Not enrolled in Medicare hospice, which are PACE, which I know we've had people on here before that have been in the PACE program, and not residing in a nursing home. So that automatically takes some people out of the mix. But I would encourage you to definitely look up this guide, and it goes by GUIDE. And it came out back in July of 24, but they've just now expanded the program to other areas. And so they have 330 organizations now in the United States providing these services if you qualify. And it says there may be other requirements. Well, you know, that's the disclaimer. Other duties as assigned, sort of, so to speak. So I wanted to let y'all know about that. Let's see, Minerva, did you get that email from me that gave you that link?
I want to say yes, but can you resend it to me?
Okay. Well, so you may
when
not.
you have a chance.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll go on because Anna had a question. So Anna.
I just wanted to let you know that when I checked it out, it was, I'm in Iowa, and it
Yeah.
was specific to whether or not your provider was participating. My mom's provider was not participating, so it took us out of the mix for that. But it does look very hopeful for folks who do get to be part of that. I had my fingers crossed, but when my provider said no, they weren't going to participate, we were out of luck.
Yeah. When I ran into these, it was a home health care agency, and they had joined that program. And I said, "Are you sure?" Because, but it's been many years since I was with the area agency on aging. So yes, we fought and fought and fought during those years to get some additional services for caregivers. And so I was just amazed when it came up. Wanted to make sure everybody knew about it. But like I say, there's always those disclaimers about other things that may knock you out of that program. Okay, Cheryl, she's looking for that link I had sent her. It's a CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services link. And if we don't get that, we will, let's see, I will send it out with other additional resources, Minerva says. So look for an email after the session, and she will include that there so that you can peruse that information and see if it would help you and make connections to see if you qualify. It's worth that, right, Anna? It's worth trying to at least see. Yeah. And like I said, I looked at their map and they're pretty much in a lot of the states now. There's a couple, New Mexico and some of the far northeast states. They don't have it going there, but look it up, see if it'll help you. Okay, look, there you go. We always have to just ask. Karen put it up for us, so hey. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sorry Dr. Ham had to rush off. Then we didn't have 2 hours today like we usually do. Let's see. We are in September, October. We'll be back in November, usually that first Wednesday. So keep an eye out for us and take care of yourself and know that I appreciate everything that you're doing for the person you're caring for. Bye bye.